All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ, down there in Tequila, Georgia. My good friend, Philly University of North Georgia alumni, check the hat, Matt Green. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. I know now that you're a Tennessee alum, you haven't forgotten your roots. You're North Georgia Nighthawk through and through.
Absolutely. Nighthawk through and through, where both my parents went, alma mater there. That's how we met. This podcast does not exist, Matt Green, if I am not a Nighthawk along with yourself.
Very true. Very true.
It's going to be weird when the Nesbitt building is named after the two of us.
Yeah, that's what I've always wanted.
Look, man.
Only thing I've ever wanted, really.
I'm not kidding. I'm getting a name. I'm getting my name on something on that campus. That's the end goal. I don't want to go do any speaking arrangements. Apologies to Dr. Marker about any potential future plans there. Not my deal. But if we want to talk about naming,
you gotta give back. You gotta give back to the youths. That's how you get a name. A name on a building right there. You gotta give something back to the university.
I'm just not a speaker like that. I'm not the motivational speaker type.
You're not a speaker. You got a podcast.
Well, hold on. Two different
You're
types
a talker.
of speaker.
You're a talker. You're not a speaker.
Yeah, I was going to say, there are a lot of public speakers who are not good podcast hosts. I think those are two different talents. I'm not a public speaker, or I should say motivational speaker. That's just not my DNA.
I hear you there.
Some people just have it. Like, they wake up and you're like, you don't even need coffee or caffeine in the morning. You're just ready to go and conquer the world and tell everyone else that they can do whatever they want to do and follow your dreams and all of that sort of thing. That's just not, I would be like, it's hard. It's hard. And you have to work really hard. And then it may work out and it may not. Yeah, like, it's just not. I would just be really bad at it. Be like, great, thanks, Chase, for stopping by. So, not really my DNA. Matt Green. You got the Sikkim shirt on, University of Georgia.
Yes, sir.
Helmet behind you. You got the flag behind you.
You're ready to go. I thought about rocking the new shirt, the Christmas present I received. The Jalen Carter. I don't know if you've seen the Jalen Carter Breadman shirt. Barstool. He's a Barstool athlete. And so they released a shirt of him picking up Jaden Daniels in the SEC championship. So I thought about rocking it for the pod, but it's probably going to be my playoff shirt. Maybe one of Jalen Carter's final games as a Dog. Hopefully not his last game as a Dog.
Well, we'll get into Jalen Carter because I have some Jalen Carter ticks too when we get there. But I am curious. Do you have any do you have a uniform that you, generally speaking, will wear for Georgia games? Do you have like an attire that you prefer or you think is a lucky attire? Are you going to wear something that you wore during the playoff run last year for the Dawgs? So you're going to wear the exact same outfit?
I think lots of times I would say I can definitely switch it up. So it's not like I have to rock something. But lots of times I'll rock the red polo for the home games, the gray polo for the road games. Typically what I do. But lots of times I can rock this shirt during a game or like another Georgia shirt. It doesn't have to be the polo. But in the SEC championship last year, I want to say I rocked the red polo in the SEC championship when we lost to Alabama. So in the national championship, I made sure to bust out the gray polo because couldn't rock the same one for the rematch. So I was aware of that.
Do you already know what's happening on Saturday night? Do you know?
Do I know what's happening?
Yeah. Do you have it laid out? Do you know which way you're going Saturday night?
For the shirt?
Yeah.
That's what I said. I'm probably rocking that Breadman shirt.
No, not probably. Are you going to do it? So that's what's happening. That's the choice.
I think so.
Okay. There you go. I don't know what I'm going to wear for the game on Friday night. What many are saying, the real playoff game between the two almosts, the Orange Bowl. All orange all the time. Many are saying
you can have your playoff. Give me the Orange Bowl.
Absolutely. Matt Green, because we're going to spend a lot of time doing our massive college ball playoff preview, semifinal preview on this edition of the podcast, not a lot of news that we're going to hit here. But there is one thing that I wanted to pick your brain on, and it's that bowls potentially paying players to play in bowls might be something that happens in the not too distant future, maybe even next year. NIL is just an ever evolving space, and the rules are just hard to keep up with. I don't really know how this will all work, but I sent this over to you earlier in regards to the Yahoo College Football Show with Pat Forty, Dan Wetzel, and Ross Dellinger. And Ross was talking about just him speaking, I think, with like the bowl commissioner, or I forget who it was specifically. But basically, like, there's talks about like how, I mean, obviously you want to fix bowl season, and this is something that I think people are missing. Like, you and I are taping this right after Oregon UNC, and I've said for years on this podcast that Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson are the best duo, and that Fox Nooner is the best broadcast in college football, and has been for a while. But right at the end, it's when Chase Kodak catches that touchdown, the reaction from the Oregon bench and all that. It's just every broadcaster every former player, I think, has to get out. Tell me those guys don't care about bowl games or these bowl games. And I'm like, they cannot help themselves. Or I'm like, that is not the conversation. Who doesn't believe that the guys who are playing in those bowl games aren't animated, aren't all bought in and having a good time and want to win the game? That's not what we're saying. It's not the argument. The argument is both offensive coordinators for these teams were not in this game. A lot of people have departed. People had to transfer before these bowl games because they have to be enrolled before January to make this next semester. Like, no one is having that argument. What we're saying is, like, it's messed up right now, and bowl season is not the same, and you would not be having these conversations and not be trying to figure out ways to incentivize more of these players to play and not opt out of these bowl games if everything was fine. If everything was fine, this would not be a discussion point on a very good podcast to start their show today. And I thought it was interesting listening to it, so I highly encourage everybody to go check the Yahoo College Football Show out and listen to what those guys were talking about. But what did you make of that idea, and whether or not that will be a big enough draw? Because basically it's still like, what, $10,000 to $15,000 or something per player if it were to go in, I think is what they said. When you break it up, if they got half of what the universities, generally speaking, will get from playing in a bowl game, and then splitting it up among the players that many different ways. I forgot what it is exactly. I don't know if you remember that. But either way, do you think that is enough to flip a lot of this and fix a lot of what's going on with bowl season the last couple of years?
See, no, I don't think that's really the issue, because the guys, the reasons for players transferring or for not playing in the bowls are still going to exist. Like, yeah, you might get an extra $10,000, $12,000 for playing in the Alamo Bowl, but I'm trying to be a first-round pick. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be a first-round pick or like a second-round pick, and I'm like, I don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. Like, if that's where your mind is, then there's not really an amount of money you can make in a bowl game that's going to compare to the money you can make with your first NFL contract, or you getting your second NFL contract. So I don't, and then the calendar is just what changes everything, because yeah, if we got signing day in February, like not every single coordinator, like you're still going to have some guys that, like, I need to get a quick head start on this job or whatever the case may be. Like, I don't call the plays here, whatever, whatever. I'm just going to go ahead and move on. Like, there's still going to be some guys that move on, but it just, right now, guys don't have a choice but to move on. Like, you can't just wait around be a lame duck at this old job. I mean, Luke Fickell coached the freaking bowl game for Wisconsin. Like, I didn't even realize that was going to happen.
Cincinnati.
No, for Wisconsin. Like, Luke Fickell was coach for the new team in the bowl game. So I hope we don't get to the point where players are playing in the bowl game. So I don't feel like a coach should be able to coach the bowl games. I don't know. That's a little gray area there. So I don't know if the other point they made on that podcast too, it's like how everyone is talking about, these bowls are dying, and I think we were literally having the conversation a couple of days ago that it's just not the same. It's not the same excitement. Although the Holiday Bowl delivered, as it always does, like I told you. So it's not the same as it always was, and it's like, maybe you put it at the start of the season, but the point they made is it gets really good ratings because so many people are off during the holidays. You just want to put some football on TV, and they get really good ratings compared to other things that are on in December. So That's what ESPN wants. That was what the networks want. They want to get ratings. So it's not like this huge existential crisis because they're doing fine ratings on the middle of a Tuesday in December. But from the fan perspective, like you look at these games and it's just every crowd is like 10% full. It's like, I don't know, like just because it's the AutoZone Liberty Bowl, it's like, can the AutoZone Liberty Bowl not be on campus at Memphis or shoot, it is in Memphis, isn't it? But at the stadium who was in the Liberty Bowl? That game was earlier today. Can't even come up with two teams out there. Kansas and Arkansas. Like if you put that game at Arkansas, like 80,000 people are gonna be there. Like because it's a football game in December. It's like that. Yeah, that's what we do. Our team's playing a game. We're gonna show up. But am I gonna drive to Memphis for this game? Maybe we'll go 7-5 this year. Like I don't think fans really care from that perspective. But TV contracts are where the money is, so they don't really care if fans show up, which kind of sucks. But I think a lot of these you could get rid of the neutral site aspect of these, and you can keep all your corporate sponsors and everything. But to actually play it on a stadium, I think that would improve. I think a lot of the bowl games.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what
then
ultimately
you lose
happens.
the whole go into a cool vacation or whatever, but it is what it is.
Well, that's the thing. The people at the means, like going down to Miami for Tennessee, Clemson, like it's fun. It's an excuse to go on vacation and travel with the team and go do that. I saw videos of like families staying at the same hotel as the Tennessee football players, and like one kid ran over and like dapped up Nico as he's walking out with the players, and that's a cool moment he'll never forget. And things like that. And the players who do go, like they're clearly having a good time. That they're getting away, and it's been a long season. It's kind of like a reward for the guys who want to go. And if you go to the Miami, but sometimes you're going to Boston, you're going to the Pinstripe Bowl in New York, you're going to some areas. You're like, is this really something I want to do? We're going to go
to Shreveport, Louisiana.
Yeah, and you're like, is this really a vacation for us? And no shots fired there. It's just not the destination for a lot of these guys. So I don't know. Like you said, there are other problems with bowl season, and this doesn't really address the other ones. But look, this would not hurt things. This would only help, even if it only helps a little bit. I think at least they're being proactive and trying to fix things a little bit more, right? Like that's all you can really ask, because they didn't do this. It's not the bowl commissioner's fault. It's not these bowls' fault as to why they're in the position that they're in. But that's just where we're at, Matt Green.
Yeah, exactly. It's a loaded problem. There's a few different reasons why the bowl season just kind of feels the way it does these days. But I mean, you could probably start with just a bowl really being an accomplishment and having to win like 8 games or something to make a bowl. So I don't know.
Can I have it? Is this a hot take? I think Fickle coaching the Wisconsin game is horrific.
You don't like that?
No. This is you were coaching another team mid-year. Like, I don't like that. That's just weird. Like, it's the same season. If we're supposed to believe that this is the end of a season, that you put the bow on this particular season, that's really, really weird.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. Like, I don't feel like a player should be able to do
no,
that.
Like, unless you open Pandora's box for a player to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't like it. So, yeah, shame on
Wisconsin, man. They just do weird things.
Yeah.
Barry Alvarez just came out of retirement to coach the bowl game. Like,
I seem okay with that when Bob Stoops does his one-timer for Oklahoma. Like, I'm actually all in favor of that. If you want to bring a guy out of retirement for a game, just hang out and do this.
That's strange to me. Like, why would you bring a guy who's not even on the staff? Like, the whole Jeff Saturday thing. Like, an interim coach that's just not even on the staff. Like, just any coach that's currently on the staff seems like a better option to just coach the current team. Like, he knows all the players and everything. Like, I don't know. That's so strange to me.
Well, if that's the case, then explain to me how the Colts are just thriving under Jeff Saturday, Matt Green.
I didn't say it wouldn't work. I'm just saying it seems
no, it's not
so
working,
weird.
Matt Green. They've lost 5 straight.
Have they? I didn't. That shows you how big of an NFL fan I am right there.
Yeah, no, Jeff Saturday's been a disaster as an interim head coach. Matt Green, let me check my notes here. Yes, the College Football Playoff is happening this weekend, Saturday afternoon to evening. Already informed the wife that Friday and Saturday, it's just I'm going to be busy. Like, it's not going to be a great date night weekend, Matt Green. We got New Year's Eve with Georgia, Ohio State at 8 o'clock. And before that, you got Michigan, TCU at 4. Friday night, you got Vols, Tigers at 8 p.m. Man, a lot of good football, a lot of big bowl games coming up. And we'll go through those other ones, but who really cares outside of the Vols and the CFP? Who could really, whomst among us, Matt Green, really care outside of those big three? Many are saying it's the big three the weekend, Matt Green. But let's start.
There is some weird New Year's Six matchups. That's by far the best New Year's Six matchup.
Yes, I think so. I would say so. And there's a lot of good storylines going into this one. So we'll see what happens on that regard, and we'll talk more Vols, Clemson in a bit. But Matt Green, I think we have to start with semifinal game number 2 because you are a UGA guy. Everyone knows it. The comment section love it because they're just like, Matt Green, why are we asking the UGA homer to pick apart Tennessee's recruiting class? I don't know. You were getting swords thrown in, or arrows thrown in your direction
Is that right?
Yeah, you were poo-pooing.
Where is that? On the YouTube comment section?
Yeah, on the YouTube one. Just going after Tennessee's recruiting class.
All I'm saying is those are the classes that got Dan Mullen fired, finishing like 10th, 5th, 6th in the SEC. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Matt Green. He's not worried, YouTube.com/ChaseMustPodcast. Matt Green, UGA, Ohio State, your team, semifinal, undefeated versus the 11-1 Ohio State Buckeyes. Did not appear in the Big Ten title game. They get in following the USC loss in the Pac-12 title game to Utah. They move back in, and they have a date with the Bulldogs. I am very, very excited to see how this unfolds. I've been going back and forth the last couple of weeks trying to figure out which way I'm leaning in this regard. My gut to this point, and has maintained, is I'm taking the field against Georgia, but I just don't know which one it's going to be. Is it going to be the semifinal, or is it going to be the national championship? I don't know which one, but my gut the last month just can't be shaken on the 15-0 storyline for the Dawgs. It's asking a lot in today's.
See, I don't know why you get so hung up on the 15-0. It's like at this point they've done the hard part. Like, I mean, obviously the playoff is super difficult, but it's like it's making the Final Four. It's like, you know, the best is gonna whatever come out, but it's like the actual running the table and going undefeated, like, it's tough. Like the Missouri game, it's like that's why going undefeated is tough, because you can just not bring it one day, and, you know, a team is getting up to play the number 1 team in the country, and you just kind of, you know, for whatever reason, don't bring your best game. So it's like, I think those kind of eggs you might lay along the way are why it's so hard to go undefeated. Like, you see the big games, anyone can get up for the big games and play well in the big games. I feel like it's the week in and week out that makes it the struggle.
I don't know, Matt Green. I differ here, because I think you're going to have to beat the number 2 and number 3 team in the country in succession.
That's fair.
To get through here. So it's hard. Doesn't mean it can't be done. It just means I think it's going to be very difficult. And you can make the case this is the best 2-year run in college football history if you're able to pull this off for the Dawgs, if they're able to pull this off. Where should we start with this matchup, Matt Green? I want to start here. I have a lot of questions I want to throw in your direction and pick your brain on this. And the thing I get back to on this, and you mentioned the Missouri game, and my question is, what if Ohio State gets home against Georgia? How does this game go if they're getting home often and Stetson Bennett is under duress for the majority of this football game, Matt Green?
Yeah, I mean, I think if anyone's getting pressure on the quarterback, that's always gonna be challenging for an offense. But Georgia's also first in the country in sacks allowed. Like, I think Stetson's only been sacked like 5-6 times the whole year. So I feel like if there's one thing you're probably confident of if you're Georgia, it's that Stetson's probably going to have time to make some plays. And part of it is that Stetson also, he's crafty in the pocket, and he eludes the pressure. He scrambles around, makes some plays with his legs. So, yeah, I mean, that's definitely what Ohio State's gonna have to do. I think they're gonna have to first and foremost shut down the run and make Stetson have to beat you. But I mean, there's been a lot of games where he's done just that this year.
How much trouble is Georgia in if they're not able to attack down the field? Because if you remember, I always go back to like that A.D. Mitchell catch, right? The Stetson bomb, where it's like, oh, they came back to life. We were like, okay, Georgia has life here. And obviously we know what happened after that. I wonder if AD's not ready to go, and he's still a little bit hobbled, and there still is just not that downfield threat to take advantage of the Ohio State secondary, which is littered with 4 and 5 stars, but they haven't been good. So that's the area where Georgia can attack the most. Is the linebackers and the defensive ends for Ohio State have been very good this year, and the front seven's been very good. I mean, we've obviously seen multiple sack, interception, touchdowns from this Buckeyes team in important moments. So the front seven is strong for Ohio State. Where they're not strong is the secondary. And I wonder for you, like, how worried are you of the receivers not taking advantage of this this Achilles heel for the Ohio State defense?
I think Georgia will definitely take advantage of that because they haven't played with A.D. Mitchell basically all season. Like the Oregon game is the only game that they got a healthy A.D. Mitchell. So this guy's had another month to get healthy, and he did play in the LSU game. He did play a little bit in the last couple games of the season. But, I mean, if he's healthy, that sets Georgia's offense off even better than it's been. And like, I mean, McConkey has caught plenty of deep balls in his couple years at Georgia. Like Arian Smith has been a deep ball threat. So I don't think Georgia really. I think they can just beat you so many different ways that I don't think their offense really relies on anything. Honestly, like you look at the Tennessee game and the Oregon game, like they didn't really run the ball particularly well in either of those games, and it was the passing offense that just diced up the other team. So I think Georgia and especially like in terms of big plays, like you just dump it off to Brock Bowers, you dump it off to Darnell Washington. Like Georgia can kill you going 10 yards at a time down the field too. It's not like they have to have these big plays. Like, but the fact that and I feel like Michigan's kind of a similar team like that, and the fact that they were just gouging Ohio State the way they did, like it seemed like they had to do everything to stop the run, and Michigan was just killing them with the big plays through the passing game, and then by the end of the game, they were just gashing them for 80-yard touchdown runs. So I just look at Michigan. It's hard to really know too much about Ohio State because I just feel like this schedule was just so weak. Like Penn State and Michigan are really the only teams on the schedule that I respect. Like Notre Dame was good, but the week 1 Notre Dame that they played, that team was awful. Like that's the team that lost to Marshall. Like that was before they made the quarterback change. Like that team was terrible, and Ohio State didn't look particularly great in that one either. But that's a long week 1. That's a long time ago. So you look at the team you've seen most recently is the one against Michigan, and Georgia feels like just a better version of Michigan. It feels like Michigan is honestly the team that people kind of pretend Georgia is, because Michigan's the team that relies on running the ball. Like if you stop Michigan on the ground, and we're obviously going to get to Michigan TCU, if you stop Michigan on the ground, like I don't really know what they can do against you. Like Georgia, if you stop Georgia on the ground, I think Stetson and the passing game, I think they can make plays. Also, if you're taking away the pass, I think Georgia's run game is good enough to carry you too. So I'm just not sure how Ohio State and with just those 2-game sample size of Penn State and Michigan, like they played 3 top 50 offenses the entire season, and Toledo was one of them. So it's hard, and Penn State had some success on offense. Michigan obviously has a lot of success on offense. So it's tough to know exactly how good this Ohio State team is, but like the secondary definitely looks like a weakness, especially what you're used to seeing from Ohio State, with just first-round pick after first-round pick, it feels like, at corner.
I like it. Last big, broad question for this matchup for you, Matt Green. And I don't think this is as big of an issue now that we know Henderson's not going to play in this game for Ohio State. But they're also just up in the air with their number 2 in Williams, and we'll see if he plays. He is, I don't think, has been confirmed if he's playing or not. So it looks like it might be a lot of Hayden in this one for the Buckeyes. They might have to rely a lot on him, and he's not a big dude. And I'm a little nervous if I'm a Buckeye fan about relying a lot on him to run between the tackles and charge through the B gap here against the Dawgs and Jalen Carter. But what if the Buckeyes are able to run on this Georgia defense? How does that change your feelings about how this game will go? If you notice that's what's happening in this game.
I think that's really the only way that Ohio State wins this game is if they're able to run the ball. Like if they're one dimensional, I just don't think there's any chance. Like as good as CJ Stroud is, like I don't think there's any chance that him throwing the ball like 40, 50 times. Like I don't think there's any way that that's a good thing for Ohio State. I think they have to be balanced in order to beat Georgia. Like because I think a lot of people are going to point to that LSU game and see, Georgia gave up 500 yards through the air against LSU. And I just don't see that at all. Like, honestly, I don't see that as a blueprint in any way for Georgia, only because they were up 35-10 at halftime of that game. So it's like, obviously it's not over in the third quarter, but I mean, you got to take it with a grain of salt that Georgia's just sitting back and just not giving up big plays. And, they got a backup in and they threw the ball 50 times. Like, so I think, even if you look at CJ Stroud throughout his career, like if he attempts to, I think a lot was made under like when Jake Fromm was the quarterback at Georgia, like when he attempted 30 times, like they never won or something like that, or some sort of stat like that. Like if CJ Stroud throws the ball 40 times, like that's not a good thing for Ohio State. You go back to this year and last year, like he attempted 40 passes one time this year, and it was the Michigan game, and they lost. And he attempted 40 passes against Michigan last year, and they lost. He attempted 54 against Oregon last year, and they lost. Like they did beat Utah in that shootout, but that's not a good thing for Ohio State. Like as good as C.J. Stroud and these playmakers for Ohio State are, even without Jackson Smith and Jigba, it's Ohio State, and they just have dudes outside. But I think it's hard to see without TreVeyon Henderson. It's hard to see Ohio State having too much success on the ground. I think that's going to be how I think this game starts to get away from them. Is just that Georgia's going to cause them to be one dimensional. I think, and it's going to be all about the passing game. And I think if you just put it in the air enough times, like you've seen with this Georgia secondary, like they're going to get some turnovers. Like Ringo, I think Ringo's been criticized a lot this year, kind of been a little underwhelming. I think maybe a little too much is made of it, but he's not necessarily the top 10, top 15 pick that I think people thought he was coming into the year, but he's still a really good corner. And Kamari Lassiter on the other side is a really good corner. And I'm not sure there's a better safety duo in the country than Chris Smith and Malachi Starks, honestly. Like Malachi Starks is going to be just a future superstar as far as I'm concerned. Like this guy is a true freshman and he's just a baller. So, and Chris Smith, he's a first team All-American this year. So it's hard to see like just them passing 40, 50 times and having too much success, I think.
I like it. Matt Green, Jalen Carter is interesting because I was reading Pete Thamel's piece on ESPN kind of previewing this game. And he said something that I thought was interesting in this one and talking to a coach, but he talked to a lot of different coaches in this one, SEC coaches. And he said, quote, "This year, Carter inhaled Tennessee's offensive line in Knoxville, forcing 2 fumbles and a 27-13 rout. That kicked off a run that's seen 7 tackles for loss in the past 5 games." That's been the game changer to me. So it's like one of the things that I think people overlook about what happened against Tennessee in the Alabama game was Will Anderson was not a factor. Dallas Turner was not a factor. And for Tennessee to have a shot in that game, they had to not be factors. Like that was just part of the deal, is if Tennessee could not shut down Will Anderson on the edge, the game was over because Hendon Hooker has that quick drop. He's going to get destroyed, and they're just not going to be able to have any of the downfield time to do anything, because that was the thing. It's like they were challenging Alabama downfield so much and putting their defensive backs in so many high pressure situations that, hey, sometimes they're going to fold, and the speed kills in this league, as you and I know, and it's hard for any defensive back to keep up with Jalen Hyatt running free like that deep over the middle or down the sideline. And I wonder if you can expect, as a Georgia fan, for Jalen Carter to be able to be that just world breaker that he was in the Tennessee game and what he's been the last 5 games in both playoff games. Like, what if, because the Michigan offensive line is probably the best they'll have ever seen this year when they get there. If they do, if Michigan takes care of business and Georgia takes care of business, I just wonder what happens if he has an off game? What happens if he's neutralized and he's not a factor? Because, hey, there have been moments this year where it's like Jalen Carter has not been super dominant and played a bunch of snaps in every single game this year. What if he's not all the way locked in one of these games? What if he's thinking about the draft and being the number 1 overall pick? Like, there were concerns that did pop up, Matt Green, on Jalen Carter.
And I don't know what those concerns were. I think it's safe to say Jalen Carter is going to be locked in. And I think in general, like, that's why just so many people just undervalue defense and just the play at the line of scrimmage. Like, that doesn't slump, because if you're a elite receiver, elite quarterback or something, like, sometimes you can just be a little off. Like, you can drop a pass. Like, you're not getting whatever. The defense is kind of doing something to take you away. Like, they're, a running back, you're not getting holes or something. Like, you're just an elite monster up front and you're unblockable. You're always going to be unblockable. Like, if you're healthy, like, the defense, an offensive line isn't just suddenly going to be able to block Jalen Carter. You know what I mean? Like, and if the same goes for the offensive line. Like, and I think that's why the trenches, the play in the trenches is just so important, because that's just the foundation of your entire team. And if you can disrupt that, you can disrupt an entire team. And that's exactly what Jalen Carter is. And I think that's why he's, like, even a pass rusher like Will Anderson, I feel like at times could be taken out of a game. But Jalen Carter, when you're disrupting the middle of an offensive line, like, there's nothing they can do about it. And Georgia just gets so creative with their defensive line, the way they move him around, and will kind of get Jalen Carter matched up one-on-one against somebody. Like, it seems like they do a lot of different things, and also blitzing the corners and things like that. Javon Bullard had, 2 or 3 sacks, I think, in that Tennessee game. So Georgia just does so many different things, and I feel like it's hard to ignore how Georgia played in the big games. Because if you're looking at, like, Ohio State, like, through the years, you're not measuring Ohio State based on what they did against Purdue. You're not based on what the sleepwalking they did against Maryland or something. You're basing it on the Michigan game. And when they would play Michigan, they get up and you're seeing the best version of them. In the Big Ten Championship, you're seeing the best version of them. And when you see Georgia play this year versus Oregon, there's 5 teams that are currently ranked, but just the Oregon game was a huge, like, just atmosphere of a game. The Tennessee game, like, there hasn't been a bigger game in the history of Sanford Stadium in terms of just atmosphere and anticipation. Like, just all the big games Georgia's played this year in the SEC championship, like, that's when you've seen them look the best, honestly. The offense has been clicking. The defense has just been swallowing the opponent. Like, it's I think that's the games you got to measure. I'm not looking at Kentucky when it was windy and cold and they scored 16 points, or the Missouri game where they kind of sleptwalked on the road. It's like, this is going to be, no weather is involved in this. Like, this is going to be the big game atmosphere. And at this point, Georgia's got the big game experience. Stetson Bennett's got the big game experience. Like, I don't know. It's hard to see them just stopping this Georgia offense. I think that's what gets lost, I think, a lot of times when people talk about Georgia. Because as far as I'm concerned, in this game, of the 4 units on the field, 3 of them are elite. And it's Ohio State's offense, it's Georgia's offense, and Georgia's defense. Like, Ohio State's defense just isn't at the same level, as far as I'm concerned, as Georgia. And Georgia's averaging 40 points a game. Like, the way and Tennessee was just such a dynamic number 1 offense in the country this year. And the way Georgia played against that offense, like, they're obviously not the same as what C.J. Stroud and Ohio State are. But, man, it's hard to see, like, I don't know. It's hard to see Ohio State stopping this Georgia defense. Like I was saying earlier, they Ohio State has faced 3 top 50 offenses this year, in Michigan, Penn State, and Toledo. Georgia's faced 6 top 50 offenses. Ohio State gave up 32 points a game in those 3 games. Georgia gave up 15 points a game. Won all of those games, or on an average, they won those games by over 3 touchdowns. Beat Oregon by like 40-something points. So I just don't think Ohio State's going to have an answer for Georgia offensively. I think if this game is competitive, there's no chance Georgia is held under 40. And I think the only chance they're under 30 is if it's kind of like every other Georgia game they play, like where maybe they jump out 21-0 in the second quarter, and then they're kind of taking their foot off the gas. I'm not saying it's going to be that big of a blowout, but I think that's the only way I don't see Georgia putting up huge points, because I think if Georgia's offense is needing to score, they're going to continue to score on this offense. Like I have not been that impressed with what Ohio State, what I've seen from Ohio State's defense. But another part of it is just, like I said, the small sample size. Like the Big Ten is ultimately why I struggle to have a feeling about either of these games, because this is just the worst the Big Ten, I think, has been in a long time. And I don't know if it's just a couple of good teams, if these are actually 2 of the best teams in the country, or if they're just the 2 best teams in a bad Big Ten. Because, I mean, you look at like 8 of like the bottom 30 offenses in the country are in the Big Ten. Like there's just a lot of bad offenses, and maybe there's a lot of good defenses, but I watched Iowa play. I watched Wisconsin play for most of the year. I watched, Nebraska play for most of the year, and there wasn't good offense being played. So it's Michigan State too. It's like, I don't know. I struggle with what I saw of the Big Ten this year. I struggle to think that Ohio State can keep up with Georgia on both sides of the ball, honestly.
So I think I know where you're leaning in your
I think I've made it obvious at this point, but
well, hold on. Before we even say it, a couple of things. UGA I was doing some other deep dives. Something that I thought was interesting. Georgia is 33rd in 10-plus yards per play per BCF Toys. I love going through BCF Toys' stats here. Ohio State is number 1 at this. Number 1 at the most 10-plus yards per play. Plays that end up being 10-plus yards. Anyone in the country, they're number 1. I think this might decide the game. Like, if Ohio State is able to keep doing that sort of thing where they are beating Georgia over the top, and those receivers are getting separation against these Georgia defensive backs, and Malachi Starks looks like a freshman, and they are able to beat them over the top and kind of shake them a little bit, kind of like what Tennessee did last year in that first quarter, where they're able to just do some stuff early that kind of resets how Georgia's playing, and they play from behind a little bit. Then we're looking at a different situation, I think, because, again, this defense is still a top 5 defense. It's probably top 3 defense in the country, but they are not what they were last year. And you just wonder if there is even a little bit of hope for a Buckeye fan about winning this game. It's that, look, you still probably have, I mean, not even probably, I think you have the best receiver in this game in Marvin Harrison Jr. And you wonder, okay, even without Jackson Smith and Jigba, our 3 wideouts are going to put more pressure on Georgia than anyone else. Because also, with the Tennessee game, it was cold and rainy, and the conditions changed how both sides played, especially in the second half. That's not. But
it only started raining like the second half.
Well, I'm saying Georgia didn't open it up, and Tennessee was struggling through the air after that point. Like it did not help things with the downfield assault and the route running and the physicality and everything else. Getting the ball out, like it's going to be a clean evening here for both sides of the team, which I think will actually help Ohio State. That this is not going to be in the elements type of game, and that this is going to be.
That game against Michigan was like the nicest weather for an Ohio State Michigan game like ever. Like it was like 70 degrees, like perfect.
True, and that game was decided by what? The big plays by Michigan that just completely caught Ohio State off guard in the second half. Like they didn't see that coming. Just big play after big play quickly, and it was just they were dead before they even knew it. Georgia doesn't really play like that. We haven't really seen that as much this year. And if Ohio State does that to Georgia, what happens? So I guess that is my question is like...
If Ohio State does what to Georgia?
The 10-plus yard big plays where Georgia gives up 4 or 5 just humongous plays. Maybe 3 of them are touchdowns. Like Marvin Harrison Jr. beats him twice over the top, or Hayden on a screen or out in the flats, and he breaks one for 40 to 50. Like, what does that change for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's definitely something. That's what Ohio State's going to have to do. But this Georgia team's just been so good at limiting the big plays. Really, it's like the Kent State and the Missouri are like 2 of the games I can think of like big plays being pulled on Georgia, and also like Malachi Starks, both against Florida and LSU, had a one where he tried to jump the route that ended up going for like 80 yards. So it's like there have been a couple plays here and there, but it's like those were also. It's hard to ignore that. Both of those were in the third quarter, up about 4 touchdowns when they happened. So maybe the guy felt like he could take a gamble with a blowout at that point in the game. But I just think that Georgia's got so many different ways to beat teams. I think Keely Ringo versus Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think Georgia typically has a corner like follow a guy. I think they typically just keep him on their own side of the field. But Keely Ringo he can earn a lot of money, I think, in this game with the way kind of people have been a little down on him, that he's been exposed a little bit. He has given up a few big catches this season, but this is a heavyweight matchup right here, and you got to know he's going to bring his A game, playing probably the best receiver in college football. I know Jalen Hyatt won the award, but I'd probably take Marvin Harrison Jr. over any receiver in college football right now.
Another thing that I thought was interesting, Ohio State is number 1 in points per drive when starting with the short field. Georgia is number 21 as a reference. So, that's something else to consider, is Georgia not giving Ohio State short fields, because Ohio State, with good field position, is the most deadly team in college football, Matt Green.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that's one of the ways that Ohio State wins is some of the games this year where Georgia's been a little sloppy and turned the ball over. Like, that's when you've seen the worst version of Georgia for sure. So, if they're turning the ball over, anything can happen when you're turning it over. Like that Penn State game. Like, Penn State was playing with Ohio State in that game, but 4 turnovers. It was 4-0, I think, in the turnover margin in that game, and that's definitely the reason Ohio State won. So, yeah, if you're turning the ball over, I think that's really the only way personally I see Ohio State winning is if they win the turnover battle.
Last thing, and we'll do our predictions. Buckeyes are number 1 in the country in net yards per play. Number 2 is Michigan. Number 3 is Georgia. Like I've said all season long, healthy Tennessee is number 4. I think they're the 4th best team in the country. And I think number 3 is Ohio State. Number 2, Michigan. And number 1, Georgia. Man, I'm so fascinated to see how this goes, because I think this is going to be a lot more high scoring, and I think this is probably going to be a little bit closer than people maybe are anticipating on the Georgia side of things. But we shall see. It is time, Matt Green, for our actual picks in this one. So what is your official semifinal game?
Let me give you a couple more stats before I jump into the pick. But in terms of like trying to figure out like based on like the opponent they're playing, I think this was from College Football Nerds where I got this stat. The percentage of opponents' yards allowed, Ohio State has allowed 89% of the rushing total. Like essentially, if you're averaging 100 yards a game, they're giving up 89 to that opponent. So they're giving up 89% of opponents' average on the ground and 100% of opponents' average through the air. Whereas Georgia is giving up 2 better offenses also. Georgia is giving up, on average, 70% of teams' rushing production and 85% of passing production. So they've played better offenses, and they're also holding those teams to worse production than Ohio State is. And on the season, Georgia opponents are averaging 31.7 points per game and against everyone else, and scoring 12.8 versus Georgia. Whereas Ohio State's opponents are averaging 26.9, which is almost a full touchdown less than Georgia's opponents, and giving up 19.3, which is almost a whole touchdown more than Georgia's giving up. So with that said, those are the last 2 stats I'll give you. I just don't see – one stat I also saw, I think, earlier this week was Ohio State's like number 1. I don't know if it was efficiency or like total yards given up to running backs and tight ends this year. Like that like they were the best in the country at that. And I feel like Georgia's just at the point where I just saw that stat and I kind of shrugged it off. It's like, well, they haven't faced a tight end like Brock Bowers or Darnell Washington this year. So I'm not really concerned about that because no team has a Darnell Washington or a Brock Bowers. So I just think those two are just going to be so hard to stop. And I think Georgia's going to stay balanced with their three-headed monster in the backfield. So I see this being a close game, but I think Georgia ultimately wins it by multiple scores. So I'm going to go 34-17. Georgia wins this one.
Okay, Matt Green. I like it. Matt Green, you're going to be surprised by my number here. You're going to be surprised. I'm going Georgia 42, Ohio State 17. I think this gets bad. The 1-2 against Michigan for Ryan Day, not a good look. It's a rare thing to start off your Ohio State football coaching career with a losing record for the first 3 times. Cooper was the last time this was the case. I'm not feeling it. I don't think Ryan Day's the guy. I don't see the urban magic coming here. I don't see Ryan Day and this group running the gauntlet in the college football playoff, and I think they unravel a little bit here. I think Georgia blows the doors off them, and I don't like C.J. Stroud playing from behind. I'm terrified to see what he looks like when Jalen Carter is breaking through and really putting him under duress. Maybe this is a little bit different if Jackson Smith and Jigba's playing and there's multiple proven guys to put more and more pressure on this Georgia secondary. I just don't see it. They're a finesse wide receiver group, and we saw kind of like Tennessee. I mean, they got out-physicaled by that Georgia secondary, and I suspect they're going to let them play, and they're going to be physical with this Ohio State receiving core just like they were against Tennessee, and Tennessee just couldn't get open. They couldn't. You saw Keely Ringo running with Cedric Tillman and just perfect coverage. It's like, I mean, yeah, they're all over you, but like you got to do something. Like that's part of this game is you're going to have to find a counter to this. And they never did. And I just don't think Ohio State's going to find a counter either. So I am going to go 42-17 Buckeyes getting blown out by the Dawgs here. And it's going to be, I think it's going to feel kind of like a home game. I think Georgia fans are going to be out in full force for this one too.
I'm curious to see the attendance numbers because I think Ohio State fans will travel well. I think they'll be well represented. I think it'll be a much better ratio than LSU or Oregon games were this year. Georgia's third game in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But yeah, Georgia's ability to stop the run with and just always kind of keeping 2 deep safeties is just it's hard to beat if your defensive line is that good. So last one I'll give you. Ohio State's played 3 teams that are currently ranked this year, outscored them 80 by a total of 88-86. Georgia's played 5 currently ranked opponents, outscored them 219-72. So those 2 things are a little bit different. So I just think this Georgia team is they're explosive and they're going to be hard for Ohio State to beat. I think that 2014 Alabama, that's the only time Ohio State has ever beaten the SEC champion. They don't necessarily have a great track record against SEC teams in the postseason. But we are both taking Georgia to win and cover. And our first game on the 31st, Michigan and TCU. And Georgia's a 6.5-point favorite, by the way. And Michigan is a 7.5-point favorite in this one. How do you see this one going, sir? Hit me. Where do you want to start?
My first question to you. What if Max Duggan struggles, Matt Green? Is there a path to TCU winning if Max Duggan is not the best player on the field on Saturday afternoon?
Short answer, no. Max Duggan has definitely got a ball out, but I think this running game doesn't necessarily get the credit it deserves. Like, I think, why am I blanking on his name?
Kendre Miller.
This guy's a baller. Over 1,300 yards, 17 touchdowns. He's a workhorse. And DeMarcado, their second running back, and obviously Duggan, his contribution to the running game. It's just so hard to compare to any team Michigan's faced all season. Like, this is definitely the best offense they've faced other than Ohio State, but it's just such a different offense. Like they're way more balanced. Like they're just, I don't know. Max Duggan's just way more dynamic. Like as good as C.J. Stroud is, you're just not worried about him taking off and running. I think people are, but Michigan's got the number 1 or number 3 run D in all of college football. So I think TCU has to stay balanced in order to win. Like if it's all on Max Duggan passing, I don't think there's a way they can win. I think they have to stay balanced.
I agree. And I think there is a path for Max Duggan to kind of struggle here for a long while, and then TCU still have a chance in this one. My question to you, what if Michigan dominates with their offensive line and running game? Is there a path to a TCU victory?
I mean, I think that's obviously the way Michigan wants to play. Like that's what has to happen for Michigan to win, honestly. Like if Michigan's not running the ball well, like they're not going to win, in my opinion. Like if this is on JJ McCarthy, like they're not going to win. So I think for starters, they have to run the ball well, but I think they probably will because that's what they do. So if they're taking the clock out of the game, having these like kind of longer drives, that's obviously what they need to do to neutralize TCU's offense. But I feel like there's still a chance that TCU, like that's just Michigan's method of scoring, and there's a chance that TCU can come right back, and they're if they're not getting slowed down on their side. So I think TCU can still win this game if Michigan is able to run the ball, because it's hard to like game plan for stopping this dominant run attack. The one thing I wonder about is like Donovan Edwards has not been the workhorse back all year. So he's had his fair share of injuries. Obviously was the backup third string last year, a good third stringer last year that contributed, but he's been the backup all year, missed a few games in like September, October. And with Corum out, it's all on Donovan Edwards. So, like, if Donovan Edwards gets dinged up in this one, like, does Michigan still have a running game after that? Like, I think if so much is going to be put on his plate and Michigan's going to have to run to win, like, can Donovan Edwards carry it 30 times and carry the load like that? He hadn't really had to do that many times this season.
That's fair. Last broad question for you. Michigan has never played a 3-3-5 that TCU throws at them. Do you think that ultimately matters, that they've not seen this kind of schematic defense before?
I mean, it's hard to say. I'm not necessarily the scheme guy over here, but with what TCU does defensively, like they're not a great defense, right? But they're not bad at all. Like you look at who they faced this year. Like kind of go back to that stat I was saying with Georgia and Ohio State, because Michigan's faced a lot of the same opponents. Michigan's faced 3 top 50 offenses this year. TCU's faced 9. So, and I don't think like a few years back, like the Big 12 just played 0 defense. Like that's not really been the case in recent years. Like the Big 12 has been solid defense. And I mean, you can just kind of also just look with your eyes, like the way teams are tackling, where they were playing, like no one's playing any defense. Like that hasn't been what the Big 12 has been this year. So they've had a lot of like top 20, 30 offenses in this conference, like basically the entire conference. If nine opponents they've played are in the top 50 in total offense, like I think that kind of skews TCU's defensive production compared to Michigan's. So it's tough to say. But I mean, the way they played against Texas, like that's one of the more explosive offenses they played this year, and they shut them down, held the offense to 3 points.
Yeah. The thing about TCU that I struggle with in this game is just that, what's weird is I think this game will be closer, but I think Ohio State has a better chance of winning than TCU. And what I mean by that is like, I think if you play Georgia, Ohio State 100 times, Ohio State probably gets a crazy way of winning 20. I won't say 20, like 12 times, where it's like they blitz him and they block well for Stroud and he has time and he dices the secondary. Like you'd see that 12 times out of 100 scenario like that. The way TCU has to beat Michigan, where I just go through everything, where I'm like, I think if you play this game 100 times, Michigan wins 98. I think Michigan wins this game 98 times. Michigan is just not considered elite in everything when they are. I don't know what they need to do. Like TCU is 70th in sacks forced. So if you're worried about JJ McCarthy running for his life or having to do too much, it's like it's not how TCU plays in the 3-3-5. Like they're a bend don't break defense, and they were like, you're not going to get the big play against us. They didn't allow Texas to have any big plays when they were on the road in Austin. Michigan's like, fine, we're just going to run it down your throats, and we're going to bet on our offensive line out physicaling you and just burying you. Because if you're not going to put pressure on JJ, our one inexperienced guy in this moment, who is a 5-star with all the talent in the world, fine. Like, we are more than fine playing that style, the 3 to 4 yard gain after 3 to 4 yard gain. We're better at it than Texas was. And Texas was obviously close in that game. But, like, I don't see a scenario where they're going to be able to throw them off their game in that way. I think there's no path to Michigan not dominating in the trenches in this one. And I struggle to find a way for TCU to win when they're not going to put pressure on JJ McCarthy. They're not going to make JJ McCarthy have to beat him. Like, Michigan is elite on both sides of the ball. I mentioned the scoring in yards per play. They're number 2 in net yards per play. And we talk about this offense like it's just all run, run, run. Whatever you want to say about it, it's extremely efficient and extremely successful. And they know exactly who they are. The identity is so strong there that I don't see them being knocked off their game. They're number 1 in defense in not allowing 10-plus yard plays. The big plays for TCU, I don't think are coming in this one. Michigan doesn't allow anybody to do that. They didn't allow Ohio State to come back in that game with any big plays to match what Michigan was doing. They're number 3 in coverage per PFF. They're number 3 in rush defense per PFF. I just go up and down the list. I was just combing stat after stat, and I'm just like, I don't see a path for TCU. And TCU's a good team. I just don't think they belong in the same field. I think this is going to be a physical domination, kind of like TCU or Tennessee, Georgia, where the score might be 27-13. But I think it feels like, oh my God, TCU never really had a chance in this one. You had to watch the 60 minutes to see the physical domination that Michigan did to TCU. That's my feeling.
See, that's where I disagree, because I think this TCU team is a good team. Like, you look at the Kansas State performance, and they obviously did beat Kansas State once, but the Kansas State performance has to worry you because they're like at least kind of a similar like template to what Michigan wants to do, and they were able to run basically all over TCU in that game. So if Kansas State can run on TCU, then it's hard to see them shutting Michigan down. I feel like I'm buying Max Duggan. I'm buying that he's going to make some plays, that he's gonna like just run around and make plays, and Kendre Miller on the ground is gonna make plays, and Johnston, like, he's a one-on-one nightmare on the outside, Quentin Johnston. So it's I tend to think I almost called TCU to pull the upset, to be honest. Like I really like this TCU team. Michigan is a lot like Georgia last year, honestly. Like, offensively, they feel just like Georgia, where this running game I think has been much more dominant than Georgia's was a year ago, but maybe more like 2017 Georgia with Chubb and Michelle. But it's definitely run first. So and the quarterback's more managing the game, and he's kind of, he makes some plays when he needs to, but ultimately the ground game is what has to do it. But people act like that running the ball isn't a part of offense. Like, having a good offense doesn't mean you have a good passing offense. It means you move the ball and you score points, and however you do that is how you play offense. And they're an elite running game and when they need to be, a really good passing game. So I don't think they're going to get enough stops to beat Michigan, but I'm going to take TCU to cover. So I feel this is going to be like a 34-30 type game. Like, I see it being like pretty close, because I really don't think the ultimate thing it comes down to me is the Big Ten. Like, I just don't know what we were watching all season in the Big Ten. Like, were we seeing really good football? And with the Big 12, it's like, was that a lot of mediocre teams, or is that a lot of good teams that were beating each other because they play a round robin schedule and everyone has to play everyone? So it's hard to know exactly what we're getting coming out of different conferences. That's what makes this college football postseason so great sometimes. Sometimes they screw it up really bad. But I've liked this TCU team all year. It's hard to pick them to win, but give me TCU to cover, but ultimately Michigan to win. Did you have a score?
Yeah, so I don't think TCU, if TCU gets to the 30s, I think they're winning. Like, that's the thing. It's like, if you have a 33-30 situation, that tells me TCU is going to win. I think this is going to be 27-13 Michigan.
So you're going exactly the same as Georgia, Tennessee.
I do. I'm going to stick with that. I think this is somewhere around there. They win by 2 scores, but it's low scoring. I think this is honestly, a really rough way. And you mentioned, I love that you said that they feel like Georgia. You're going to love my national championship pick, Matt Green, because this Michigan team does feel a lot like Georgia a year ago.
The problem is the defense, like the production is great. And there was the same talk about Georgia last year, is like, who are the great offenses they've played. So it is similar from that respect, and I don't know how many first rounders this Michigan team is going to put in the league, but that also adds to it of just like the star quality that Georgia defense had in 2021. It's just, I don't know. It's hard to see Michigan being that good. Production wise, it's pretty damn similar.
Yeah. But we'll see what ultimately happens here, Matt Green.
And I think if it was TCU Georgia, I think that just wouldn't feel as good in the national championship. As good as this TCU team has been, I think people would talk about the ratings and it being terrible or whatever, but because everyone hates when it's the same teams, but then they also get mad when it's someone different. So I you know what I mean? It's like the Astros and some random who they play a few years ago. It just wasn't a very sexy World Series, but I don't know, the Royals or Mets or something, but Georgia Michigan that's a sexy brand name matchup.
Yeah, I also will say, if Ohio State upsets Georgia, or I guess because TCU will go first, if TCU wins, I'm pulling hard as hell for Ohio State because of the reasons you just outlined, and also I just don't think Georgia TCU is a good game. I think Georgia just obliterates TCU. But if if
TCU wins, you're rooting for Ohio State? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because I would love TCU Ohio State because I think that actually could go either way. A national title between those two could go either way.
Who knows? We shall see.
Matt Green, where are we going next in bowl season?
All right, so let's start off on the 29th. The Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl in Yankee Stadium. We got Syracuse and Minnesota. Golden Gophers are an 11-point favorite in this one. How do you see it going?
What happened to Syracuse, Matt Green? Like, they were just, you were all in. You were like, they got robbed at Clemson.
They did get robbed. They never recovered from it.
I thought they finished 6-6. When I saw this, I was like, I thought they just won their first 6 and then lost their last 6, because that's how their season felt, right?
Yeah.
Just all the bright lights in the beginning, Garrett Schrader and company, Sean Tucker. And then the offense just completely stalled. And Robert Anae is gone. He's now the OC at NC State. Tanner Morgan will be back next year as well, 8-4. This Gopher defense has been.
Are you being serious? Is Tanner Morgan really back next year?
He is back next year.
How many years has this man been in college?
Unless I'm mistaken, I'm pretty certain Tanner Morgan's back next year. I think he's got one more, the COVID year. I'm pretty. Because you got basically 7 years. Yeah, he's 23. Yeah, he's back next year.
Wow.
Yeah, Tanner Morgan's not going anywhere. Death taxes, no. My man's getting his doctorate in Gopher land. I don't like this matchup at all for Syracuse. Give me the Gophers and that elite defense. The offense has struggled all year long, but I believe in that Gopher defense. Top 10 defense all year. Give me the Gophers to win and cover.
This is New York's college team, sir. Mm-hmm. Are you not aware of that? Syracuse Orange being played in Yankee Stadium?
Mm-hmm.
I'm also going to take the Golden Gophers, but give me Syracuse to cover. 11-point spread. It's a little high for my liking. Keeping it moving on the 29th, we got the Cheez-It Bowl in Orlando. Oklahoma and Florida State. Sexy brand name matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Rematch of the 2000 Orange Bowl for the national title. Oklahoma's last national championship. Florida State is a 9.5-point favorite in this one. Obviously, geography in their favor, playing in Orlando. How do you see this one going?
I think this could get ugly for Oklahoma, Matt Green. Florida State's won 5 straight. Number 1 in the portal, killing it in the transfer portal. Jordan Travis has just been electric all year long. They got to number 13 in the final CFP rankings. Guess what, though? This is something I really like. Guess how many opt-outs Florida State has in this game?
I'm going to say 0.
0 opt-outs, Matt Green. This is a stat we got to keep track of. I want someone to do this. That's their job on Twitter. It's just the opt-out tracker for each team. They got 0 for this one, Matt Green. Give me the Noles to win and win big. Oklahoma rebounded in recruiting and all that good stuff for this class, but I don't think it matters in this one. Give me the Noles to finish on a 6-game win streak and pick up right where they left off when they decimated a rough Florida team at home at the Doak.
All right, put it on the board. Florida State win and cover. Oklahoma has not had a losing season since 1998. Florida State has not won a bowl game since 2017.
Something has to give.
Both of those streaks. No, nothing has to give. Oh yeah, you're right. Wait. No, you're right. Both of those, no. You confused me. Nothing. Those don't have to give because both of those can happen, and both of those are going to happen. You confused me. Florida State is going to win, and Oklahoma is going to have their first losing season since '98. So, put on the board. You're confusing my stats over here. But there you go. There's the Cheez-It Bowl. Keeping it moving, the Valero Alamo Bowl. Oh, I forgot to update our scores, but I can do that when we're done here. But the Alamo Bowl, we got Texas and Washington. Texas is a 3-point favorite in this one. Washington's won 6 straight coming into this game. Obviously, I like bowl game geography. Advantage goes to Texas there, but I just think Washington's going to be the more motivated team. So give me Washington to win outright.
Man, we're on the same page here. I love Michael Penix Jr. in that offense. Number 1 passing offense in college football this year. 10-win season. Great season for Kalen DeBoer. This defense, this is, I think Texas defensive coordinator was the DC, either for Jimmy Lake or for Chris Peterson or he had some kind of, maybe he was with Sark. No, he was with Sark as DC with UW when Sark was at UW years ago. So there's a UW connection there because obviously Sark was the guy who kind of got UW revitalized before Chris Peterson just kind of solidified everything and got them to the college football playoff. But this will be an interesting matchup, another sexy brand matchup between these two teams. But Bijan Robinson opted out for this one, and Roschon Johnson, the two main usage guys in the backfield. So it's going to be Jonathan Brooks, who has a usage rate of 6% this year, and Keelan Robinson, who has a usage rate of 4%. A lot of Xavier Worthy and Jordan Whittington will be needed to win this game, but I just don't see it, Matt Green. I'm really surprised to see that Texas is favored by 3.5 for this one. For that to be the case, I think Quinn Ewers has to have a really, really good day because he's not going to have the running game to fall back on, which has been the heart and soul of this Texas team this year. I don't see it. Give me the Huskies to win and win outright.
All right, we agree again. Keeping it moving on the 30th, the Duke's Mayo Bowl in Charlotte. We got Maryland and NC State in this one. Wolfpack is a 1-point favorite. How do you see this one going?
Are we getting a Devin Leary appearance like Grayson McCall where he played for the Chanticleers even though he was in the portal?
Not that I know of, but who knows?
How weird was that, by the way? And then, of course, he gets hurt where you're like, oh, God, of course you get hurt for doing this thing, trying to be a good teammate and all this stuff. And then he gets hurt anyway. And you're like, well, that's just the worst possible scenario. And this is why all these guys rightfully don't play. And you're like, well, that's a rough shot for bowl season for Grayson McCall to get hurt in that one. This is just, I think this is a toss-up because I think both offenses are just like, we'll see which defense really shows up for this one. Maryland's defense has just been a sieve for years with Mike Locksley and company. I think they'll be able to score on NC State, but I really, really love this NC State defense. And Devin Leary, no Devin Leary. MJ Morris has kind of solidified his spot. He's going to be the starter going into next year. Kind of a Joe Milton spot for him, where he gets that last audition before the offseason for the Wolfpack. I think they're going to be fine with Robert and I coming in there and Tim Beck moving on to Coastal. And I think they get a nice little jump start there. People doubt the Wolfpack. I just I'm trusting Dave Doran over Mike Loxley here. So give me the Wolfpack.
The Wolfpack were my team coming into the year. This is your classic ACC matchup right here, Maryland, NC State. I just think there's too much uncertainty for NC State, so give me Maryland to win this one. Keeping it moving, Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, El Paso, Texas. We got Pittsburgh and UCLA. UCLA is a 5.5-point favorite in this one. How do you see it going?
Nick Patty is playing quarterback for the Pitt Panthers in this one, Matt Green. I watched Mr. Patty. I don't know if you recall what happened in the Tennessee Pitt game.
Oh, do I recall what happened? This guy gave his heart and soul for the Pitt Panthers in that game.
It was rough.
Still almost beat the Vols. Hobbling around out there.
How dare you, sir? The man is not a starting quarterback in this league, and I don't believe he's going toe-to-toe, throw for DTR in this UCLA offense. This is like, I would be completely surprised if this is even close. What's the number on this one? What's the spread?
5.5.
That's wild. DTR's playing. Like, he's not opting out. Zach Charbonnet is playing. I don't think there are really any opt-outs for UCLA in this one. I think they win this game, and I think they win big.
Yeah, this was a bad draw for Pittsburgh because I think just with how good the Pac-12 was, UCLA ended up being like the 5th or 6th best team out of the conference and getting the Sun Bowl. But, yeah, I agree completely. UCLA is just too good. So, not impressed with Pitt this year. Yeah, give me UCLA to win and cover. Keeping it moving to the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. Notre Dame and South Carolina. Notre Dame's a 2-point favorite in this one. How do you see it going?
I always have a soft spot for this one, the Gator Bowl. Family in Jacksonville, we used to go growing up to Jacksonville around this time for Christmas vacation. And
were they in that last year? Is that
Who?
the Indiana game? Indiana Tennessee? Was that the
That was not
Tax
last year. That was like
Slayer?
2019. They were in it. That was 2019, I think.
Oh wait, who was it last year? Was it Purdue?
Purdue and Tennessee.
Was that the Tax Slayer Bowl,
I don't
or was
think
that the
no, that wasn't Jacksonville.
like the Music City Bowl or something?
I don't remember that. I think that was Music City. That sounds right. I think it was in Nashville.
No, Wait, that's a dumb question.
Yeah, Music City is Nashville. Yeah, it was Nashville.
Memphis is what?
Liberty
Bowl. Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it
What
was
is
in Nashville
Memphis?
last
Is
year.
that the Blues City? Nashville's the Music City? Is that? I thought Memphis had some sort of title like
Beale
that.
Street? And then, it's the...
I don't know. It's not important. It's a big building with a lot of patience, but that's not important right now.
This is like, it makes me feel good though, because I feel like Notre Dame's been in this game a lot. I feel like South Carolina like owns this game. Like this and the Outback Bowl is just all South Carolina's ever been in. If they go to a bowl game, they're either in the Gator Bowl or the Outback Bowl. It feels like those are the only two I've ever remember. Like remember South Carolina with the Jadeveon Clowney hit on Michigan? That was the Outback Bowl. Every memory I have of South Carolina football is just one of those two bowl games. Like in terms of bowl games.
It's a good point. They won 11 games 3 years in a row, and did they go to the Outback Bowl every year? Like I can't even really remember. Maybe the Capital One Bowl or something sprinkled in there. But yeah, I think you're right. This isn't as good as it gets. South Carolina has been better, but yeah, this is about what they can expect year in year out.
Well, they don't play often, and Notre Dame owns this rivalry. I think they've only lost to South Carolina once ever. This is the first time the two have played in 40 years, so that's pretty cool. I think this will be a good turnout on both sides. Obviously, the quarterback for Notre Dame is now at Arizona State. I believe Drew Pine. I guess Tyler Buckner is going to start for this one before our guy Sam Hartman just comes over. Maybe Sam Hartman can play quarterback for Notre Dame in this one because that's no rules based on the Luke Fickell coaching the Wisconsin game. Guys can just hop in and play this. So we'll see. Michael Mayer is not playing their great All-American-esque tight end for the Fighting Irish. That's a problem. I think the weirdest aspect of this game is that Spencer Rattler is going to wait until after the bowl game, that's when he's going to make his decision based on how he plays. What talent evaluator, what NFL franchise is going, look, Spencer balls out against a Tyler Buckner-led Notre Dame team in the Gator Bowl. That's when we know we can hand the keys.
This changes everything.
I saw that, and I'm reading that Spencer is going to wait and see how he plays in the bowl game, and I'm like, and the whole point of these guys opting out is because no NFL evaluators are taking that much into account on what these guys are doing in these bowl games.
To be fair, I think the reason most of them opt out is because they have nothing left to prove.
Yeah.
So it can work the opposite way, that you can use it to, like, some guys throw at the combine and they look really good, and some guys are like, I don't have anything to prove, I'm not going to throw at the combine. So, I mean, it's not completely that way. Like, he could, and he's probably going to go to the portal, right? Like, is he really going to go pro? He's probably, like, he could have a good game here and it'd be like a better team than he was expecting now wants him to play there. Like, I don't know. I can understand from an NFL perspective. I'm with you. Like, this one game isn't going to change anything, but I don't know. I mean, I think it was more, I thought from his quote was like, he loves Shane Beamer and he wants to finish what they started kind of thing. Like, more of a finishing the season type thing, which I respect.
Yeah, I don't see it, man. I think this goes a ride, and I think Notre Dame wins this one. I think this is going to be a weird, stupid game. I don't think the momentum continues on from the Clemson-Tennessee one. Notre Dame's defense is good. I think Notre Dame wins and covers, but I think this is going to be an ugly, ugly game between Rattler and Tyler Buckner.
So you just said it, man. It's going to be a weird, stupid game, and you're picking Notre Dame to win?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a weird, stupid, probably sloppy game because it feels like every game in the Gator Bowl, the field is just, like, torn up. I don't know what's going on in Jacksonville, but...
Hey, leave my family...
It feels like I remember Georgia played Penn State and Nebraska. Like, maybe they were in back-to-back years with Mark Richt near the end.
Mm-hmm.
And the field is just always just so sloppy. But, no, I'm taking the Gamecocks. Shane Beamer, he's going to rally his guys. This game's not important, but it's not going to be a sign of how they finish the season. It's going to be what they do next year. Like, the portal, they've already, like, I have no idea what to expect from South Carolina this year. But something about Shane Beamer. I think he rallies the troops. I think they win this game. Give me South Carolina.
How dare you? Well, we'll see.
Somebody's got to stand up for the Gamecocks on this podcast. You know, you're just constantly roasting them over here. I gotta get their back. Shane Beamer for doing a hell of a job.
Couldn't be me.
But let's keep it moving. Barstool Sports, Arizona Bowl. Tucson, Arizona. We got Ohio and Wyoming. They're like, Barstool, we'll let you have a bowl game, but we're not going to give you a good bowl game. We're going to give you Ohio and Wyoming. And Ohio is a 1.5-point favorite in this one. Bobcats have won 7 of their last 8. Make it 8 of the last 9. Give me the Bobcats to win.
This game sucks. I don't know if you go back and look. I think this is the worst bowl game, Matt Green. You go back through how teams are entering this one. Ohio, you picked them in the MAC title game. You're like, man, everything's coming up. Everything's coming up. Ohio Bobcat football. Like, everyone's talking about Frank Solich's the house that Frank Solich built over there.
Everybody I know is talking about it.
Yeah, and they proceed to lose to Toledo and never win the MAC as they always have. On the flip side, the flippity flop, Wyoming's best running back Titus Swin got dismissed from the team after the year. They had 7 players enter the portal. They ended poorly. I don't really. They have a 2-game losing streak right now. This is just ugly. I don't know. They've only played twice in their history, and Wyoming's won both. So give me Wyoming to go 3-0 against the Bobcats.
All right, put it on the board. Wait, you said Wyoming, right?
Oh, yeah, Wyoming.
Yeah.
Did I say Bobcats at the
You
end
said
there?
against the Bobcats.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I wrote it down right. And our last one, our nightcap on the 30th, our first New Year's Six game. The orangest of all of the Orange Bowls. We got the Tennessee Volunteers and the Clemson Tigers. Clemson, surprising maybe to some, 4.5-point favorite in this one. How do you see this one going, sir?
It's not a surprise when Jeremy Banks, Hendon Hooker, Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt, Darnell Wright are all not playing in this particular game. It's a lot of bodies, a lot of important bodies not accounted for. 2 of the 3 main starters out wide are not playing in this one. That's a problem. Another problem is DJ Uiagalelei is not under center for the Clemson Tigers, Matt Green. I think that line might be a little bit different if it's DJ under center for Clemson. No, it's Cade Klubnik, and the last time we saw him, he was roasting the North Carolina Tar Heels in the ACC title game. So I think that's a very different part of it. I think it's just anyone who says they know how this game's going to go are silly. We don't know what a full start of Cade Klubnik looks like after a month to prepare. We don't know what Joe Milton's going to look like in this one. We don't know what Tennessee's defense is going to look like without Jeremy Banks. The last time we saw Tennessee's defense without Jeremy Banks, it was a massacre at South Carolina. This is probably the healthiest the secondary's been all year for Tennessee, which is huge because they've been just ridiculously destroyed there. I think the pass rush will be good in this one. I don't think Clemson will. I'm curious. I think the matchup to watch is Will Shipley versus this Tennessee front seven because Tennessee's run defense has been one of the 20-ish best run defenses in college football this year. And if they're able to limit Will Shipley and make Cade Klubnik beat them, I'm not certain they can do so. But we're going to see what Joe Milton looks like on deep throws. We're going to see how much underneath stuff Clemson allows Tennessee to do here. I think Murphy is out for the Tigers, which is huge for them. So I think the pass rush might not be all that devastating. Still a lot of talent there, but big-time NFL talent not going to be rushing the passer for the Tigers. So I think if we get a good Joe Milton game like the Vanderbilt game, then Tennessee wins and wins big. If we get the opposite, I think Clemson wins big. So I've gone back and forth on this one. I think this game just means more to Tennessee is what I come down to. It's like Clemson's just used to being a playoff team year over year, and like you're still in a New Year's Six game, but this is not where you wanted to be for the year. If you just take care of business against South Carolina, you're probably in the college football playoff. I don't think probably. I think you're back in. But you let things slip because you stuck with DJU for a little bit too long, and it cost you in the rivalry game and another chance at winning another title. I think that might linger for this team. And you wonder, okay, well, Tennessee also missed. Joe Milton is a guy, like he's a hometown guy. A lot of family will be and friends will be at this game, a local Miami kid. And he has a lot to prove because they've said, Joey Halsey and this Tennessee staff is like, it's an open competition in the spring between Joe, Nico, and Taven Jackson. Like, Joe is not walking in as just like the entrenched starter. It's going to be an open competition. He has a lot to prove. There's no open competition for Clemson and Cade Klubnik. He's the guy going into next year. Joe Milton has to show in this game that he can be the next guy and follow Hooker and nail those deep balls that Hendon Hooker just destroyed defenses with, because the underneath stuff he has and the mile an hour fastball that he throws, can he reel that in a little bit, and can he just play an ultimate complete football game that we just became so used to with Hendon Hooker? How much does he run with the football? Because he's so much bigger than Hendon Hooker. Is he going to be able to just pound this Clemson defense? Is he going to actually use his legs and just bury this Clemson defense? I'm curious to see how many design runs they have for him there. No Alex Golish. Obviously, he takes the USF job. I wonder how much that changes things. Doesn't seem like all that much. But all that being said, I think Joe has too much to prove. So I'm going to bet on Joe, and I'm going to say that he has a great game, and Tennessee wins and covers, like, I'm going to say 45-27 Tennessee.
You think Joe Milton and Tennessee are putting up 45 on this Clemson defense?
let me go through the list of teams that Tennessee did not put a lot of points on Matt Green this season.
Hey, we're talking Joe Milton. This is a whole new ball game. I think this line has a lot less to do with Klubnik versus DJU and a lot more to do with Joe Milton and all the other players that are, well, I should say Hendon Hooker and all the other players that are missing for Tennessee. I think it's just hard to know exactly what you're going to get from Tennessee in this one. And I don't think there's any I don't think complacency will be an issue for Clemson just because Klubnik, it's like a new thing. So it's like this almost feels like the start of the 2023 season and like what they could potentially be moving forward. So I don't necessarily think that'll be an issue. It's hard to know exactly what you're getting from Tennessee in this one with so many guys out. And just for that reason, I got to go Clemson to win this one and cover. So, going to go with the other orange team to win the Orange Bowl in this one. So, do we know the uniform combo for this game yet?
Yeah, Tennessee's wearing orange top and white pants, and I think Clemson's wearing all white.
So it's white, orange, white versus white, white, white?
Or white, or orange pants. I think Clemson's wearing orange pants.
Oh, okay. Orange, white, orange. Okay.
Yeah.
So white, orange, white versus orange, white, orange. White. Perfect. That's the perfect combo we needed. So both teams basically look the exact same on our TV. Like, cool. Just reversed. They should have brought the smoky grays for this one. But
or Clemson when was the last time they wore the purple?
Or Clemson go all orange and Tennessee go all white. Like, that would have been a better option. But, what can you do?
When did Clemson last wear the purple? I feel like I haven't seen it in forever.
I'm pretty sure they did it one year this year because it's like a military appreciation thing they do like pretty much every year. It's just like one game and like maybe it's Veterans Day or one of those days like in November, October or something. But yeah, I don't know exactly what game they rocked them for this year. But yeah, that's a good point. Clemson could have busted out the purple for this one too. Just so it's not the orangest Orange Bowl ever, but I'm afraid that's what we're going to have. So
where's Chauncey Stunkey when you need him?
I know that name. Who is that? That's Stuckey? That's the dude who played for the Pistons?
You're thinking of Rodney Stuckey.
Rodney Stuckey.
Chauncey Stuckey was a legend and Northside Warner Robins quarterback, and then he was a receiver at Clemson, and I remember him in the purple for those Clemson uniforms. Early 2000. Yeah. Gotcha. Chauncey Stuckey.
Rodney. I think it's CJ Spiller when I think of the purple unis, honestly. And James Davis in that.
Woody Dantzler.
There you go. Going way back. I think of the shadow numbers when I think of Woody Dantzler. Charlie Whitehurst. Mm-hmm. But let's keep it moving and not just name old Clemson players like we could do for days.
Men love doing it. What all men want to do is sit around naming people.
If you will.
Yeah.
The Trans-Perfect Music City Bowl in Nashville, which is indeed Music City. If you learn anything from this podcast, it's that Nashville is Music City. And you said Ohio, Wyoming was bad. This may be the worst bowl game we get. Iowa and Kentucky over under 31 points in this game. No joke. Iowa is a 2-point favorite in this one. How do you see it going?
Ugly. There's continuity, I guess, with Iowa here because their coaching staff is mostly intact for this one. Rich Gangarello obviously fired, and Liam Cohen coming sooner rather than later. Will Levis is not playing in this one for Kentucky. Spencer Petras and Alex Padilla are not. Number 1 and number 2 are not available. So they're going to go with a redshirt freshman who's never started a game and played in his first game, Joe. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Joe Labas. Man, this is, like you said, this is just going to be so ugly across the board. So, I mean, I'm going to say Iowa wins in this kind of ugly game, and this defense does enough to beat Kentucky like 19-16. I think this is just going to be an absolute slot fest, but I think that benefits Iowa more. So give me the Hawkeyes to win here.
1916. That's quite the shootout you're expecting. Hammering the over. I don't know. I'm not sure they will go over the 31. I feel like it's going to be really ugly. And Will Levis feels like without Will Levis, it's probably going to get Kentucky's offense is going to be even uglier than normal. Kentucky's won 4 straight bowl games and 4-2 in bowl games under Mark Stoops. So I think that matters. It may not, but we shall see. And I'm going to take Kentucky for that reason. So we are going to disagree on that one, sir. And our final game of our slate until next time. We still got a few bowl games to pick next podcast. We got the All-State Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, Alabama, Kansas State. Bama's a 6.5-point favorite in this one. How do you see it going?
I love that everyone's playing in this one, Matt Green. This is fun. I'm glad that like Bryce Young and Will Anderson and company are playing. Like this is going to be intense. Like you're going to get the Will Howard, Deuce Vaughn versus Will Anderson and Dallas Turner and company. I'm curious to see how this goes because basically, if Kansas State runs the football for like 200 yards, they win this game. I think they're like 7-0 this year. What is the stat? They're 7-0 when they run for 199 yards or more. No one's gotten past 80 yards in the ground versus Alabama this season. I think Alabama crushes Kansas State. I think they're motivated. I think they're pissed off. They blew out their rival to end the season. Kansas State won their Super Bowl. They beat TCU in the Big 12 title game. 3 straight bowls for Chris Kleiman. He's doing a great job. We both like Will Howard. I think this gets ugly in a hurry, and I think Alabama goes out strong here. Let me go 48-21 Crimson Tide.
See, I want to disagree. I feel like I disagree with you on how the game's going to go. So I want to pick differently, but ultimately I'm picking the same thing as you. If this was 7.5, I think I would go Kansas State because so many of the not even good teams Alabama's played, just anyone that's above average Alabama's played this year has been a one-score game just about. So I think this Kansas State team is a good team. Ever since Will Howard took over, they're a balanced attack. I think Kansas State does keep it close, but less than a touchdown, I can't do that. So I was prepared to take Kansas State to cover. I was kind of surprised that the spread was just 6.5. I was kind of preparing, thinking like a 9.5 or something like that. But I think 6.5 is too small, so I got to take Alabama to win that one. But okay. I think Kansas State hangs with them because Alabama just hasn't blown out just about anybody this year. So it's I like that at least the starters are playing and they're kind of he's showing some pride kind of thing and finishing out this season. But I think Kansas State's a good team, and I don't think they should be overlooked.
Okay. All right. Matt Green, is that it? Do we do it?
That's our slate for the games through the 31st. I think we're coming back with the pod on the 1st, so we'll recap the CFP and then a handful of games after that. But to update the listeners on the current standings, your boy made up some ground over here in the standings. You did not have a great showing from December 27th to December 28th. Not your best showing. I went 7-1 against overall, 6-2 against the spread. You, however, went just 5-3 overall and 2-6 against the spread. So not necessarily what you want from your picks, but overall we are tied 17-9. But against the spread, I am 15-10-1 to your 12-13-1. So still close, and we're obviously tied overall. So only about 80 bowl games left to play. No, it's about what is that, 10, 15 games we got left, it looks like. So 17 games left. So still some time remaining. This is probably the best weekend for all of it. Hate when Christmas is on a Sunday. Just totally throws everything off. We didn't have NFL on Sunday. We had some NFL, but it was weird. And now we don't have college football on January 1st. It's just It's madness. I don't like it. I like my Capital One Bowl, my Outback Bowl to start 11 a.m., 1 o'clock on January 1st and keep things moving from there. But, what do I know?
Hey, Matt Green has spoken. It's going to be a good lineup, though. This is going to be a good football watching weekend, my friend. And we got some big games to recap on Sunday night. So,
yeah, it is awesome. A lot of people have off on Friday. I know I have off on Friday, so it's nice to have a solid slate on Friday and Saturday for college football. So I will not be complaining about that.
Absolutely not, even though you're rooting against the Tennessee Volunteers on Friday evening with your Clemson Tigers, Matt Green.
Yeah, it's that was a tough one for me, but I had to go with the orange I dislike the least. And I think ultimately the lesser of two evils is the Clemson Tigers. I mean what do you call it? The push pop orange? Is that what people call it? Like it's just a terrible color. I was impressed with my niece this weekend, and we were coloring a little coloring book. She's 5 years old, and she had like her crayons out, and I was like, which color I don't want? And she was like, orange. And I was like, yes, you're learning things. So got to teach them young, that orange is just not acceptable.
For that guy down there in Tequila, Georgia, Matt Green, for myself up here in Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. That is all I've got, and we will be back on Saturday night.
Yes, sir.